A ton of stuff to cover, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the daily space weather. Looking at the sun at 193 angstroms, we see a coronal hole incoming. We see an ongoing magnetic connection. We saw a 6+ magnitude earthquake at an extreme 600+ kilometer depth. And a very weak solar output. Solar wind looking weak. 10.7 centimeter radial flux back down to 66 solar flux units, folks. That's about as low as we ever see. Here's a GOES X-ray imager. You can see that active plage rising. Otherwise, very low levels of X-ray flux. In fact, very low levels of X-ray flux. Here's the 304 angstroms view. There is one gigantic filament there rising in the southeast. Let's zoom in on that. And there's that filament complete with time and date stamps. Moving on. Here's the view from stereo A, and we see a large coronal hole there just north of the equator. And this is the extreme UV 195 angstroms view, again from stereo A. Just giving us a little idea if there's any activity going on, and not a lot going on. Let's maximize it. It's going to make it look distorted, but give you the maximum possible view here. Pretty low levels of activity overall, folks. Again, 10.7 centimeter radial flux back down to 66 solar flux units. Solar minimum conditions. How long do volcanic gas aerosols linger in the stratosphere? Well, we're not exactly sure, but 3 months after Rakoke spewed a plume of sulfurous gas into the atmosphere, sunsets are still turning purple. We showed some purple skies on our Instagram page, I think. This one taken in New Jersey. La Valette. Now, YouTube pays us absolutely nothing for these videos, so please support us on Patreon if you enjoy the content. As, again, these videos are monetized for Google, not for us. So join at the $9.99 a month level. Don't join at the $1 level. That evaporates on Halloween. You can also donate on PayPal. And if you are in the market for CBDs, check out the Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign, also linked below the video here. All kinds of products there, as well as sales going on for the hemp seed oil suspension whole plant tincture. So check that out if you're in the market for CBDs. Support the channel that way. Let's talk about Disaster Preparedness Month, which is September. Looking at David Dubine's book, Climate Revolution. We've moved on to step 6, develop and improve your home skills, such as sewing, knitting, know how to work on your own car. Maybe buy a car from the 70s that'll survive an EMP, who knows. Learn how to make basic repairs to your home, how to fix your roof, or how to, I don't know, grow plants, maybe brew your own alcohol, or invent forms of entertainment. One of the many ways to prep is to develop and improve your home skills. If you want to buy the book, we've linked that in the description also. Climate Revolution by David Dubine, Bill and Richard Porter. And again, you can purchase it at oilseedcrops.org. Links to that in the description. Let's move on to more solar stuff. Real-time solar wind. We see a phi angle that's been hovering here around 180. That's that coronal hole magnetic connection, folks. And again, it did kick off some major earthquakes, at least one 6+ magnitude. And unfortunately for that area, it was at depth, which means the earthquake risk has not expired. Phi angle at 187, yo. Solar wind density down to 3.69 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed 384 as solar minimum continues. There's the data from ACE, the other solar wind spacecraft. KP down to 1. Wouldn't be surprised if this dropped to 0, considering how low the solar activity is overall. And next we'll look at magnetosphere movies. First we're going to play the velocity. That's just for you, Snowflake, just for you. So enjoy that. We're going to do 4 hours of data via velocity, density, and pressure. So bear with us as we archive this information on today's space weather video. We're going to be covering a whole lot of other stuff at the end. We're only producing one video today. As you may have noticed on our channel, it was a huge hassle yesterday, as YouTube has been destroying our thumbnails, titles, descriptions, and some uploads just simply vanish into thin air. So we're not exactly sure how that happens. We just hate the software because it's junkware. We do see some anomalies here in the density. Some very dense plasma apparently around the planet here. Some oddities there around the day-night terminator. So we're going to let that play through a second time, where I should be blabbing about the magnetosphere movies and not how much Google software sucks. Lastly, here's the pressure, and what you're seeing is very, very low pressure, which is no surprise considering how weak the solar wind is. And we are approaching the equinox, so this is the time of the greatest impact of things like coronal mass ejections, coronal hole wind streams. So you know, you can get sudden spikes in a geomagnetic unrest around the equinoxes. It's a more turbulent time, magnetohydrodynamically speaking, than around the solstices, as the equinoxes are a time of greatest flux in terms of the Earth's orbit. Anyway, here's the ground geospace magnetic perturbations. Really what determines how that stuff works is the angular aspect to the solar wind hitting the magnetosphere. And there's that data. Let's move on to the ionosphere. Here's 6 hours of ionosphere data. And it's looking pretty overcharged on the nighttime side there, a little bit anomalous. And we're seeing those 12 megahertz spikes on the daytime side. And there's the latest image, 7:45 UT. Pretty heavily charged on the nighttime side, folks. X-ray flux is totally flatlined, although we are seeing some anomalies there. Check it out. The let's see, what is that? That's the GOES 14. Yeah, the GOES 14 looks like it was offline. Perhaps a CCD bakeout where the charge couple device is forced to shut down to prevent damage. We call that a CCD bakeout. The charge couple device shuts down when a thing like a high energy particle hits it to protect itself from damage. And there's a GOES electron flux looking pretty nominal here. Relativistic electrons have chilled out. We did see the highest levels in the past year, about 2 weeks ago. Charging hazards are non-existent. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. And there's where we are in 1 week, approaching another new moon. GOES magnetometer is looking pretty smooth right now. Here's the Gong 2 data. And we're looking at old data here. There we go. This data 1 hour 46 minutes old. And that plage does not contain any sunspots. So that active region that's rising, it does contain some magnetic organization, but no sunspots. So the sun kind of weakened back down there. It was looking like the 10.7 centimeter radial flux was going to get over 70, and it just hovered at 69 and fell right back down to 66. Here's where stuff is above my head. And if you want to make your own sky map, just head to in-the-sky.org. You can even animate it. Check it out. It's pretty good. Where will you be when Deneb sets? Here's that earthquake we were talking about. This 6.2 came in as we were doing show prep, folks. Check it out. A 6.2 magnitude quake. Look at that. A series of deep quakes kicking off just in the past couple hours. 6.2 in Indonesia at 611 kilometers depth. 6.0 in Indonesia, 591 kilometers depth. And a 5.7 at 638 kilometers. Those are the last few. Let's go back 24 hours. And run the whole list. Just an onslaught of deep quake, folks. Check it out. 4.6 at Fiji. And that one is at 537 kilometers. Super deep quakes, folks. Next on the list, 4.7 at Costa Rica. Here's a 5.4 at Bouvet Island. Pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Check it out, in between Africa and Antarctica. Here's a 4.7 at the Philippines. Here's a 4.4 at Peru. Heads up Oceania, every place around Australia here. Major deep quakes kicking off. And the earthquake risk / warning is not expiring because of that 6 magnitude quake or any of those others, as deep quakes tend to foretell of larger quakes at the surface. Here's a 5.3 at Papua New Guinea. Here's another deep quake. This one's at Russia. I know we saw one yesterday. That one's south of Kamchatka there, near Japan, actually. Here's a 5.1 at Papua New Guinea. That one near the surface. Here's a 4.5 at Dominica, the largest we've seen in the Caribbean for a while. 4.8 at Tonga. That one's also at nearly 200 kilometers depth. 4.5 at Japan. Don't miss this one, a 4.3 at Argentina. That one also at depth. Here's a deep quake at New Zealand, a 4.2. Here's a 4.5 at Indonesia at 240 kilometers depth. Here's a 4.4 at Indonesia. That one also at depth. And now we're back to the last couple hours here. Again, a 6.2 at Indonesia, 611 kilometers depth. Let's zoom in on that one before we move on to more stuff. There's a location of that one in between Malaysia and, I don't know, whatever those islands are, in the Java Sea. And so there you have it, folks, an onslaught of deep quakes. If you are in an earthquake-prone region and you've been seeing deep quakes there, please have a plan. Because deep quakes foretell larger quakes at the surface. So this, for instance, if this 6.2 had occurred at the surface, it would be well over a 7 magnitude quake, as this is over 600 kilometers depth. That's the kind of thing that can cause tsunamis, and that area is prone to tsunamis. Let's talk volcanoes. We covered it yesterday. Let's cover it again. It's going to blow. The most volcanically active body in the solar system, Jupiterian moon Io, is slated to explode, as this thing has a periodicity, and we've got links to the article below the video. Keeping an eye on Io. Volcano rundown, talking earthly volcanoes now. Abico is producing a 7,000-foot ash plume. Mount Aso, 7,000-foot ash plume there also. Sakurajima back on the list. Last couple days exploding, producing a 5,000-foot ash plume. Tocono, continuous eruption, 7,000-foot plume there. And it looks like the star of the day is Sabancaya down in Peru, as it explodes and produces a 24,000-foot ash plume. Please do not attempt to do a triple Lindy over Sabancaya's caldera. And let's check out the windy.com pressure maps. By the way, windy.com is a great mobile app. We're experiencing cold weather here in eastern Pennsylvania. See all that dry air? And let's just advance this about 24 hours so we can see where pressure zones will be. Heads up Taiwan. Shout out to David Dubine. There is an earthquake risk associated with that low pressure system. Let's continue on, as there's lots of more stuff to cover. And here's a U.S. Doppler radar, courtesy AccuWeather.com. It looks like some of the radar. Oh, man. All right, let's see if we can get an image here at least. There you go. There's the radar situation. I don't know why it won't animate. I have no idea. Please leave a comment if you're viewing from the U.S. Let us know your location. Perhaps we'll do an in-depth section on it. I did notice some extreme lightning. Check it out. Italy is surrounded. Lightningmaps.org. It could Save your bacon. Anyway, here's a little more animated map. Shout out Iowan viewers and Nebraskans. Glenn Carson, leave a comment if you're viewing the video. And northwestern Lake Michigan getting hit also. Check out lightningmaps.org next time you hear thunder. Now, we've got some summer snow coming in. Check it out. The equinox is on the 23rd, so it looks like Wyoming's going to get some pretty serious snow there, as well as Idaho, Montana, a little bit in Utah, a little bit in Nevada. Summer snow coming down, folks. Summer snow. Let's move on to even more stuff, such as Null School, looking at the eastern jet streams. Notice the southern hemisphere is tripled up, quadrupled up, making a 160-degree turn there toward the right side. And a whole lot of convective forces still controlling things in the north. And here's the western world. This does give you some insight into what your temperatures will be like, folks, if you understand how to read this. This data will show you cold air being pushed into warm places and warm air being pushed into cold places, as well as places where the jet stream is traveling backwards, or north to south, or south to north. Pretty funky activity going on. By the way, the jet stream really is in charge of the Earth's weather. And guess what's in charge of the jet stream, folks? The sun's magnetic fields. All right, let's look at some cloud layer. And that tropical system has scooted right past Bermuda. Hopefully there wasn't too much damage there, although it looks like it largely missed it to the northwest as forecasted. Now we're looking at the NASA GOES shortwave radiation here because, well, because it's dark out. We can't see the clouds, so this is what we use. And let's look at that convergence zone over Nebraska. It looks a little interesting. It's electric, folks. It's electric. Anyway, there's the time date stamps. That convergence zone over northeastern Nebraska. We'll look at it in the water vapor so you can figure out what's really going on. And there's a water vapor scenario. Seeing a convergence there between some extremely dry air. Keep in mind, folks, that dry air is more massive due to the molar mass of nitrogen versus water. And this is part of the reason why the atmosphere behaves the way it does. So major convergence there. And let's look at another view, as there is some more interesting stuff also on the water vapor map. Here's an anticyclone system, which is noted by clockwise rotations in the northern hemisphere. And another major convergence zone there. And let's move on to more stuff. In the form of, that is an asterisk. No, that's not. That's censored, and that is a hole in the ground. This is the censored versus sinkhole section. Listen to the scientists. Don't listen to Greta. Listen to the scientists. That's what she told Congress. Let's talk about dummies storming Area 51. 2 Dutch nationals sentenced to jail. Oh yeah, they were sentenced to a year. But all but 10 days were suspended sentence. So these silly gentlemen, known as Thies Granzier and I don't know, whoever. Anyway, they went 3 miles past the sign, the no trespassing sign. They can read and write English, but guess what? They got caught. They had cameras and drones, and this guy's got 700,000+ subscribers on YouTube, and yada, yada, yada. They didn't see them aliens. And I don't think anybody stormed Area 51. Please leave a comment if you did. Or perhaps not. Let's talk about misallocation. Yes. One of the problems with our planet is a massive misallocation of resources. So I just figured I'd define it here on wordnik.com. There is massive misallocation of resources, such as spending billions of dollars on figuring out how to reduce carbon dioxide and how to scrub carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and other stupid, idiotic ideas, and a lot of dumb science that has nothing to do with the way the climate really works. Let's talk about devaluation. Many of man's problems stem from the devaluation of human life, so don't do it. All right, let's talk cosmology. 6 galaxies captured undergoing sudden dramatic transitions, going from boring inactive galaxies to active galactic nucleus in a very quick period of time. Anyway, we talk about regularly the way cosmology and astrophysics is in the process of being rewritten right now, and this is just another example of a bunch of astronomers scratching their heads trying to figure out how these 6 galaxies could be doing what they're doing. And it's because of a fundamental misunderstanding of the way cosmology operates. Part of it has to do with the idea that gravitational accretion governs intergalactic motions. Gravitational accretion does not govern intergalactic motions. Something like electrical current or magnetic fields seem to govern these motions, not gravity. We've never seen an indication that gravitational accretion happens and that heavy elements are formed the way that standard cosmology tells us the heavy elements are formed, and so on and so forth. Let's read a quote. For the 6 objects, we first thought we had observed a tidal disruption event, which happens when a star passes too close to the supermassive black hole and gets shredded, said Sarah Frederick, a graduate student in the University of Maryland Department of Astronomy, and the lead author of the research paper. But we later found that it was a previously dormant black hole undergoing a transition that astronomers call a changing look, resulting in a bright quasar. Observing 6 of these transitions, all in relatively quite liner galaxies, suggests that we've identified a totally new class of active galactic nucleus. Anyway, we talked about Seyfert 1s and Seyfert type 2 galaxies just a couple days ago on our channel. Go watch some of our older videos. Go to the end. Or perhaps view the censored versus sinkhole video, as there's just too much stuff to cover every day. So let's continue moving on here. Links to that article, by the way, in the description below the video. Perhaps after you become our latest patron, you click on that and read the article. Here's one from The Independent. Drinking tap water in the U.S. could give you cancer, scientists warn. I'm sure everybody was already aware of this, but there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of bad chemicals in U.S. tap water that ought to not be there at things like 25 times the EPA considered safe levels. Links to this article also. U.S. tap water, ouch. Can we get the fluoride out too, by the way? Can we get rid of the fluoride? Just saying. Here's another nonsense article on phys.org. By the way, if you want to have your head explode, just go to phys.org and click on the Earth section, and every article will be about global warming, or osmotically fit some global warming nonsense into the article. Cutting emissions gradually will avert sudden jump in warming. Now, the average climate of the planet has been 2 or 3 degrees Celsius cooler over the past several million years, which is why it's a ridiculous notion to be worried about the planet warming 1.5 degrees or anything like that. I don't know if you're aware that 33 million years ago, when Antarctica began to glaciate, the planet was 2 degrees C warmer than it is today, by the way. So if you're worried about Antarctica melting because of human carbon dioxide emissions, you got another thing coming. Let's talk about the article, where they analyzed 42 scenarios, which is computer models suggesting that computer models where one of the inputs is that carbon dioxide makes the planet warmer, which we don't see that. Let's show you a graph. So there's the carbon dioxide versus temperature graph, folks, and we're only going back about 530 million years here. So, obviously you don't have all of the data here, only 530 million years worth. And if you notice the way the CO2 correlates with the temperature, you'll notice that it doesn't correlate with the temperature. It never has correlated with the temperature. CO2-induced global warming is not a thing, not on this planet. And don't try to tell us that, oh, Venus's carbon dioxide proves that carbon dioxide works on Earth as a greenhouse gas. It's complete nonsense. And the sooner people understand this, the less entropy we'll have on our planet. There's plenty of entropy on the planet already, and these stupid models that don't understand anything about atmospheric physics are an example of entropy. Because wasting resources to do research and create computer models and spend millions of dollars to study things that aren't real is an ordered system moving into chaos, wouldn't you say? We've got more articles. But first, we're going to define entropy, which we're talking about the tendency for ordered systems to degrade into disordered systems. Links to this definition from Merriam-Webster. That's m-w.com, folks. Let's talk economics real quick. Well, the Fed cut rates again and lost control of its own prime lending rate and the federal funds rate, and the Fed. Another form of entropy where banks took over capitalism. Let's talk about it. Capitalism has not existed since 1913, when Woodrow Wilson, on December 23rd, just before the Christmas New Year holiday, signed the Federal Reserve Act into law. That ensured banking cronyism, because you see, the Federal Reserve, we don't even know who owns the Federal Reserve. We knew who owned the Federal Reserve when it formed. It was a series of banks. And now, through a process of mergers and acquisitions over the past 106 years, we really don't know who owns the Fed, other than that it's owned by private banking interests. Now, in order for the Fed to artificially control interest rates, capitalism has been destroyed, because the largest block of business in the world is the interest on international and corporate loans. Check out this Peter Schiff article from Schiff Gold. Why the Fed won't be able to rescue the economy the next time around. Now, part of the reason why the stock market is so high right now is because it's been funded by cheap money. When you have interest rates low enough, companies have incentives to pay people in the form of stock, which is in effect a stock buyback program, inflating massive bubbles through cheap money. If you're going to get a higher interest rate in the stock market than you are in a savings account or in a bond investment, you're going to invest in the stock market. And Trump ran on the fact that the economy is a complete bubble. And now that Trump's president, he's claiming that the economy is great. Well, the economy is not great, folks. And just because we have low unemployment and a high stock market, there's a lot of stuff at play besides those factors. Let's move on to other stuff, such as how Google is a scam and not a verb, and is shadow banning our channel and demonetizing our videos and setting our videos to private and messing with our thumbnails and messing with our titles and removing stuff from our description. I don't know how they do it. Is it an algorithm? It just sucks. Well, in any case, Google is a scam and not a verb. And if you think you're obtaining objective search results by using Google's pathetic search engine, let me just tell you this. If you have a YouTube channel, Google will try to shake you down to, quote, fix your search listings. In other words, they'll say, give us $350 to appear higher on the search results. You think that's objective search results, folks? Use DuckDuckGo.com, please. And don't use Google as a verb. I don't like bleeding from the ear. On social media, we're on Facebook. We're actually on Twitter also, as well as Gab. Everything is /smAsho mash. I don't know if you were aware. It's a gaming name from 1999, when I first started playing online first-person shooters. We're also on Minds. We've just recently surpassed 500,000 views, and we still only have 709 subscribers. So set up an account, minds.com. Come visit us. It's minds.com/smAsho. Leave a comment. Maybe send us some tokens, or perhaps become our next patron. And thanks, patrons. You are associate producers of the show, and you are keeping this channel in existence, unlike YouTube, which is doing everything that it possibly can to get sued. I mean, prevent us from putting out our content. Thanks, Smash team, and stay tuned for one bonus feature, as this video is getting long. Actually, make that 2 bonus features. Solon.info has recently updated their analysis of cycles 23 and 24, And you can see the projected values there. That's a good thing, and we agree with their projected values. Let's go back to the sun again. And I just wanted to show you the colorized magnetogram here. This is 7 hours and 45 minutes of your local yellow dwarf. You'll be able to see any organized regions there showing up as, you know, blobs of green and yellow color next to each other. What we're looking at here is some activity right here north of the equator. It's all kind of mixed up. And some fairly field-aligned areas right over here. You can see a blob of almost entirely yellow, a blob of almost entirely green. That's that active plage rising. Again, no sunspots, and it is time to cut this video and run for our lives. All right, maybe not run for our lives, but we got to exit stage east. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please stare at the sun. Please attempt to understand the physics. Please attempt to reduce entropy in our world. And remember, when you're staring at the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Just don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.